Hi, everyone, and welcome to Marketplace Masters, the show where we explore what's working for e-commerce leaders across global marketplaces. Today, we're taking a very close look at a topic that's often misunderstood but incredibly powerful when executed right, and that is Amazon vendor direct fulfillment. Whether you're looking to drive operational efficiency, reduce inventory risk, or simply boost profitability, direct fulfillment can be a game changer, but only if you know how to do it well. Joining me today are two experts who live and breathe this space. Let me just bring them on and introduce them. Stephen Glass, the principal of the Resource Group Midwest, brings over 30 years of experience helping manufacturers succeed on Amazon and in omnichannel retail. His leadership and commercial insights have helped shape profitable fulfillment strategies for brands of all sizes. Alongside of them is Dan Nowak, Director of Content and Merchandising at the firm. Dan is a veteran of retail and e-commerce with deep expertise in content optimization, merchandising systems, and Amazon item setup. His team manages over 20 vendor accounts across both 1P and hybrid models. We're thrilled to have them with us today to explore what makes direct fulfillment work and how to avoid the costly pitfalls many vendors face. Stephen and Dan, welcome to the show. It is an absolute pleasure to have both of you here today.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul, for having us.
All right. As I said, I've been trying to, at the start of this recording, I've been looking for experts in this area for a while now, and I'm so glad you have joined us for this. We certainly hear more and more requests for direct fulfillment and connectivity to our platform, and it certainly doesn't seem to be a thing that was of the past. In fact, we're hearing more and more vendors talk about this model, so very interested in exploring it further. But maybe before we do that, I'd love to set the scene, or I'd love for you to set the scene. What exactly is Amazon direct fulfillment, and how is it different from the traditional warehouse model in Vendor Central? Who wants to kick us off with that one?
I'll take that one, Paul. So Amazon direct fulfillment model is when a 1P manufacturer ships product directly to an end user on behalf of Amazon, while the traditional warehouse model is when you ship to an Amazon distribution center and they ship out to the end user. There's a lot of benefits to this. The direct fulfillment benefits include all your ASINs are live and viewable. There are new sales opportunities with expanded offerings. You do not need to wait for Amazon POs or participate in Born to Run. Freight savings. Amazon's paying all the freight. And reduction in compliance fines. There's a lot less compliance fines on this side. 95% of our Midwest Vendor Central manufacturers participate in direct fulfillment. This really results in a lot of increased business for everyone. It's really our preferred method to launch both products and manufacturers on Amazon Vendor Central.
Thank you, Stephen. That is a great overview. You already started to talk about some of the benefits, but I'd love to go a little bit deeper on that. And maybe to you, Stephen, from your experience, I mean, what are the type of vendors and product categories that really tend to benefit the most from a direct fulfillment approach? Is it for everyone, or certain categories really lend themselves to this?
So when we first started with vendor fulfillment or drop ship, it was really kind of regulated to large, bulky items. Think furniture or products that were prone to damage because of multiple handlings, factory to DC, DC to truck, truck to end user. So that's where it started. However, today, many of our 1P manufacturers are operationally efficient and can manage orders that ship to anyone from a direct to consumer. So if you're invited to participate in direct fulfillment, you can take advantage of that. And Dan mentioned a few of the benefits earlier. Manufacturers with strong logistics capability, basically pick, pack, and ship medium-sized orders, they take advantage of direct fulfillment. Direct fulfillment also ideal for new product launches. Great way to launch an offering and get an ASIN live and viewable. You're not waiting for Amazon to provide you a PO or bearing the cost of Born to Run. So launching a product via direct fulfillment, great way to get the ASIN live and viewable. Also, as you build velocity, if you want to take advantage of Amazon's distribution network, that will ultimately drive possible in-stock POs. And I'll give you a quick example, Paul. One of our clients, one of our longest clients on the Amazon platform is Roaring Spring Paper Products. And today they actually have a program that's both in stock and direct fulfillment. And we've maximized our sales with this factory. So those smaller products, high velocity, 2, 3, 4 packs, everything's in stock, picked, packed, and shipped by Amazon. But the larger full cases or pallets that can ship direct from the factory and tend to carry higher freight rates, we allow Amazon to pay for that freight and we drop ship it for them.
That is a great example there.
Thank you.
I have so many follow-up questions, but I just want to go back to Dan and talk about the benefits in a little bit more detail before we sort of, I'm sure there's some reasons why it isn't always a good fit, but let me just go back to the benefits a little more.
Okay.
What are the key? I mean, how does Amazon try to sell this service to vendors? Because sometimes it might just be about like pushing costs down to the vendor. But how do you talk more from a neutral point of view? You're trying to grow your client's business. How do you talk about the benefits of the model? And are there differences between how Amazon talks about it and how you would articulate it?
I think the one biggest thing you hear from on the Amazon side is they try and sell it as the always in stock. Use direct fulfillment as a backup to your in-stock orders. Say if they run on a product, or there's a issue getting into the warehouse, they'll use you as a backup to fulfill that order, so you don't lose that sales velocity with the product being out of stock. Where we really look at it is like, it's hard to get that velocity, especially on a new product or a new manufacturer, to get Amazon to place a PO. How do you drive that much business to a product that's not available? So if you put it in direct fulfillment, it immediately becomes live and viewable. Now you have something to drive to. You can, put AMS money into that, advertise that product, and build velocity into that, so you can get a PO out of Amazon.
That makes sense. I was a slight follow-up question there, which is around cost price increases and negotiating with Amazon. Like, is that process still the same, or does Amazon care less if you are shipping directly? Because it's starting to border on the manufacturer fulfilled program on the 3P side, right? Which is probably my second question, which is, what are the subtle difference? I mean, conceptually they're sort of similar, but I'm sure executionally and even how it shows up to the end consumer, quite different. So maybe let's talk about costs first, and then maybe if you can draw some comparisons with or contrast with MFN too.
Stephen, you want to handle that one? Or you want me to?
You can grab that one, Noah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference is it is similar to the 3P model of that, except that Amazon is paying the freight. In the 3P model, you're paying the freight when you're doing FBM, but on this where Amazon's paying it. So it's like a trade-off. So for you to warehouse that for Amazon and act like an Amazon location, they're going to pay the freight. That's their trade-off. That's the biggest thing. And it actually makes things like cost negotiations even a little bit more difficult, right? Because you're in your 1P model where you're setting into an Amazon location, you have a vendor code for that. You'll get an additional vendor code for vendors for direct fulfillment. Now you have 2 vendor codes matched. So now when you've got to do a price change, you're changing that product twice, because each of those vendor codes is managed independently in Amazon, because you can have a different price in direct fulfillment on the same ASIN that you have going into a warehouse, because it's 2 different vendor codes. So when you change it, you got to change it twice.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be different logistics costs associated with that, right? Both on the Amazon side and your side. That makes sense. In terms of what about the end consumer? Am I right in saying that on the direct fulfillment, it's still showing up as sold by Amazon, and therefore more likely to win the buy box? And are there some of those flow-on effects that you still gain from direct fulfillment? Or let me put it this way: is there anything that Amazon takes away that you get as an in-stock vendor from a consumer point of view?
Not that Amazon takes away. What you'll see, the difference is, like you said, it still shows shipped and sold by Amazon.com. The consumer really has no idea that it's not coming out of Amazon, except usually the lead time window, where Amazon is oftentimes maybe even giving you a 2-hour window. You're not going to get that for a direct fulfillment item. They're going to get usually a 24, 2 to 3 day, up to, you can set your lead times by when you initially set up the process, and then every 28 days, those lead times will be averaged out by how quickly you get orders out, and that you'll get a lead time window. That's how really the customer would know it's coming direct fulfillment, is they'll get more of a lead time window than you would for an Amazon product that's always shipping, usually 2-day or next day.
Yep.
And Paul,
Yep.
Nowak is correct on all of that. And just to make it a tad bit more complicated, you can have multiple different virtual warehouses. So if you're selling furniture and some is quick ship, like 3 to 5 days, and others is built to order 7 to 10 days, and some is sourced 4 to 6 weeks, you can set those up in different warehouses.
Presumably with different vendor codes as well, or
not with different vendor codes. It's just you're setting products up. You're grouping products by lead type. Think of it that way. You can
so
say,
you can manage
warehouse 1, warehouse 2, warehouse 3, right?
Yeah. Got it. All right. That's great insight. I didn't know about that. So,
and I'll give you an example on that. Another very long client of ours, Corral, they make educational furniture, activity tables, folding tables. Several of the products, a grouping, they ship it same day or next day, 24, 48 hours, 36 hours, very fast, very efficient, while others are built to order, and those could take a week or 2. So Nowak and his team will put those in different buckets.
Absolutely. That was a great use case. Thank you. Makes sense. So we've talked a lot about the positives. Let's talk about some negatives. If you had to talk one of your clients out of this, what arguments would you use? What are the key reasons, Dan, why a vendor might not want to pursue direct fulfillment?
It's really an operation issue above anything else. Some manufacturers will go to a 3PL because they're not operationally efficient enough to be able to handle that. If you can't pick and pack and ship individual orders at the each or the case levels, you probably shouldn't participate. It's not a good program for you. Or you need to work with a 3PL that can do that for you. Some manufacturers also may struggle with some of the labeling and packaging requirements. There isn't a lot of them, but due to some privacy things and like that, because Amazon is giving you now customer data, how you have to receive labels, it may be an issue. The biggest warning signs you see in that is kind of like you do on the one-piece side, only it's a little bit more visible. So you can see your item suppressions in your inventory screen in Vendor Central. They show you right then what the suppression is and why it is. Is it a high-cost suppression? Is it the dreaded other reason suppression that you have no idea what that means? Or do they have too much inventory on the one-piece side where they're telling you, oh, we have a lot of inventory. We don't want you to load more inventory into this.
Makes sense. Let's have a talk about profitability. I mean, at the end of the day, making cash out of, or getting your bank account to go up out of Amazon is a big topic this year. Probably has been for many years, but it seems to be growing every year. I'm keen to understand how vendors should think about profitability. There's a lot of moving parts here, right? Maybe a better cost price, but obviously there's more from logistics cost that Amazon's trying to recover here because they're paying for a lot of that. There's obviously some savings on the vendor side. I mean, how do you think about profitability and what have you seen? Is this a more profitable model or a less profitable model? Because we're not just trading off profitability, we're trading off catalog availability and those things as well.
Yeah.
What have you seen across your client base?
I think most of our clients would say it's a more profitable model if you can operationally do it. I know Amazon is outsourcing order fulfillment to you. So you have to ensure that you've calculated internal costs, like labor and space and order processing. The biggest thing is you're giving them the number of products that you have available to ship and loading that into inventory and saying, all right, Amazon, I can ship this much. Make sure you can actually ship that much if that's what you told them, because that's where the fines and things like that come from. You can really be a lot more profitable in direct fulfillment there's a lot less compliance issues. You don't have to worry about the freight to the Amazon location. Amazon's bringing all the freight out of your facility, and all your ASINs are live and available, so your catalog is bigger, and you have more products available right away to sell.
So it really comes down to operational excellence, right? So if you have an operation already in place, and you're doing this for other channels, and it meets the standards that Amazon's looking for, I think you're probably in a good. It sounds like you're in a really good position. But if you're having to build this from scratch, or having to go through a painful learning, number of painful learning cycles, or maybe having to outsource to a 3P, then it sounds like profit can be easily eroded here. Would that be a fair summary? Just trying to paraphrase.
I think it's it. It is all about operations. How operationally efficient are you?
Yeah. So
and Paul,
go ahead.
To enhance profitability, we have factories that will not ship in network and will only manage direct fulfillment. Now, it took them a while to get there, but they're very successful at it.
Yeah, as you know, Amazon isn't real big with big and bulky products, so they don't fit in their 18-inch by 18-inch bins. It's not always the greatest thing to put in stock with Amazon.
Yeah, and the other example you mentioned earlier, like things that are made to order, right?
Right.
Very hard to ship those to, get those out to a customer within 24 hours from Amazon's warehouse as well.
Right.
So absolutely. So I just want to go a little bit deeper then on the operational side. So you mentioned that it needs to be, you need to be strong from a capability point of view in this area. That makes sense. When vendors get it wrong operationally, direct fulfillment, I mean, maybe at one level lower than we sort of discussed before, like what are the mistakes that they make, right? What are the issues? Where do things trip up?
I'll jump in that one, Nowak.
Yep, go ahead.
And we've had the pleasure with numerous clients to help them onboard the Amazon platform, specifically with direct fulfillment. And in any case, the number one area is internal alignment of all the team members. So we all spend a lot of time on the front end, making sure everyone understands how the program works. They're familiar with the systems. They go through training. If everyone is aligned, then you're going to be in great shape. After that, big pitfalls or issues would be inventory management, as Nowak discussed earlier, lead time management. So we mentioned earlier about setting up multiple different virtual warehouses. Take advantage of that to control your lead time management. And then really avoid canceling orders. Avoid that compliance fine, the potential negative review from an end user because they ordered something they wanted and then you canceled. So make sure you are managing your inventory properly.
Thank you, Stephen. That made me think about chargebacks and supply chain compliance. Obviously, when on an in-stock model, there is a lot of standards that vendors need to meet, right? As they put products into Amazon's warehouse, and a lot of times the non-compliance results in chargebacks, fees, and the like. How is that different under this model? Or I'm sure there are some similarities because Amazon will still hold you account. They'll have some metrics and they'll hold you account to that. But what are the things that are maybe a little easier from our point of view?
Sure, I'll take this, Steve.
Sure.
So it's a lot easier on the direct fulfillment side because there's really only one fine, and that's canceling orders. And you're held to some metrics, but there's no dollars behind these metrics. What you lose by them is you lose your lead time messaging, right? So if you're trying to compete with Amazon, who's shipping everything in 2 hours, you want to ship as fast as possible. And if you fall behind, they're not going to fine you, but your lead time messaging is going up. Now you're going to go from 2 to 3 days to 3 to 5 days to 8 to 10 days, and that will hurt sales velocity. That's how they get you, is with that kind of thing, not necessarily dollars. The only dollar fine is canceling orders, and you cancel too many orders, you're going to get your account suspended, and then they're going to come back to you and want you to put together a whole plan on, all right, what are you going to do to not cancel orders going forward?
Yeah, it's a different sort of stick. It's a less of
Yeah.
a heavy fine straight away. It's more your business will slowly slide down a negative spiral, and or it comes to an abrupt halt. Also, the point that Stephen made earlier about negative reviews and those things makes sense. One of the things we haven't spoken about is how do you even set this up and get started, right? So before we run out of time, I want to make sure we cover that. Particularly your point then around, you can just put, your whole catalog up there. Let's say I have an in-stock account and correct me if I'm wrong, I've been invited by Amazon. It does require an invite, I think.
It does
Please
require it.
clarify. I've been invited, so the door is open. How do I go about setting up and getting ready?
It's really, really simple. I mean, you're going to go in and set up your warehouse, the address and the times that pickups and things like that. Amazon is going to come back to you, either going to give you UPS and FedEx numbers to ship off of, or more likely they're going to set you up with labels in there, or you're going to need to set up EDI to get those labels into your system. Really depends on how you want to do it. Do you want to print labels out of Vendor Central, or do you want to pull those labels in via EDI or API into your system and print them some other means that you already have set up? Outside of that, then you're loading items, loading inventory, and you're ready to go. Inventory can refresh in as quick as 5 minutes, and you're ready to go. It's a pretty simple process.
And
So,
just
and you're not.
for the record,
go
Paul, I would have said that it's incredibly complex, and the only way to do it is to hire Dan Nowak to help get it done in our organization here. But his answer was actually probably more accurate.
He when Dan does it, it's very easy and
That's right.
simple and straightforward. So there's a small caveat there. That makes sense. Oh,
if Steven does it, it takes weeks.
So I love the fact that you have a lot more freedom in terms of just putting products on, and you're not having to wait for a purchase order for an Amazon. So is that just then about demand generation and doing that yourself around advertising or the usual levers just to start stimulating that demand? Have I got that right?
That's exactly it.
Any other trick in the book you would employ?
That's it. Advertising. I mean, you're launching a new product that nobody's going to find. It's going to be on page 200. You either got to sell enough to get up to page 1 or buy your way into page 1, and that's really it. And then you just build sales velocity from there. You're going to put a lot of extra AMS money in the beginning to launch that product, and then you start backing down as your velocity naturally catches up by your sales.
Makes sense.
And then Paul, we would focus, we would highlight that as you're adding all these new products, to focus on your product detail page. Make sure that you have a meaningful, powerful product detail page like any in-stock product.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. No compromises there. So do you, and I think you mentioned this at the start then, but one of the, or Stephen, it is possible to have the same ASIN or same product on a different vendor codes, might be an in-stock and a direct fulfillment product. So you have the ability to fulfill from both in-stock and DF.
Absolutely.
As a vendor, you may have a preference, right? Which one you want Amazon to use. Is there a way of influencing that?
Oh, absolutely. So on the PO side, right, you don't accept the PO. They can try it. Now, if you at item setup, you can set it up in one or the other. You don't have to have it in both sides. We have lots of vendors who have one set of products on one side, one set on the other side. So it's really up to you. On the vendor side, you can accept a PO. There's no charge back against not accepting an item on a PO. On the direct fulfillment side, it's a little different because you're telling Amazon by loading inventory that it's available. That's where you do get a fine if you cancel orders on that side. But you're controlling that by how much inventory you load.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Which sort of brings me to the other question, which I didn't ask you guys before, around the invite, right? I'm surprised no one's commented yet, but this is a live show, by the way. So if anyone does have a question, feel free to pop me into the comments. I know Janine has one, but it's more related to Merchant Spring, so I'll get to that at the end, Janine. But this piece around how do I get an invite, right? This seems to be a very common question. Usually it applies to the vendor platform overall, but let's say I'm an in-stock vendor. How do I open the door to direct fulfillment?
I mean, you can open a case. I mean, most 1B accounts now have some sort of support, either a vendor manager or a vendor success manager. Work with your vendor manager, vendor success manager. I'm sure they'd be happy to get you in the program. They want you to participate.
It's I guess there's an agenda there from Amazon to reduce their working capital, to reduce capacity in their warehouses,
Sure.
particularly if you're operationally in a really strong place.
Yeah.
Then why not?
Yeah.
Absolutely makes sense.
You think that item's going to sell? Go out and prove it. Prove that item, and then Amazon will buy it.
Yep, great. I'd love to sort of, as we sort of wrap up this episode, I'd love to sort of go up a level again and really talk about trends and changes. I mean, Stephen, you mentioned at the start, like this really started more as to ship, bulky furniture, the sort of more traditional kind of drop ship, 1P type model. What are the changes and trends you've seen in terms of direct fulfillment adoption, particularly sort of post-COVID, as Amazon seeks to evolve? What are the changes you've seen, and what's your prediction for the future? Big question, but I always like to ask.
No, another good question. So, regardless of Amazon's evolution or post-COVID, we've been seeing this trend building for a while, with a lot of resellers being spearheaded by Amazon on offering direct fulfillment or drop ship programs. So, speaking as a manufacturer, we're seeing trends in internal operational enhancements, bigger investments in people and processes and systems within the factory. That's leading to expanded dropship programs. So we're pleased with the work we do for a client and building out a direct fulfillment model, how we can wash, rinse, repeat that with other resellers, modifying your product offering. So different units of measures, each case pallet, like those trends are becoming bigger, and we're seeing bigger sales because of that. Additional investments in your product detail page. So something that maybe 5 or 7 years ago you would have limited interest in by folks within a company. Now it becomes a major source of a conversation of how do we make the product look better online. Trends in reduction of compliance fines, controlling costs. And then my favorite trend is kind of outsourcing the complexity of this to third-party partners like ourselves. That's what we do. That could be managing Amazon Seller Central, Vendor Central, content creation, asset recovery, accounting, 3PLs, consulting, etc.
Thank you. That's
That was a mouthful.
yeah. I thought this model was sort of died about 5-6 years ago, and I thought it was more of a legacy thing, and I've really been surprised. I've been proven wrong quite loudly on that one.
We
I think it's
actually, as an organization, and we didn't run the math, and we should have, we probably have higher total COGS in direct fulfillment than we do in stock.
Oh, no question. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And Noah, if we had to give it a percentage, what percentage?
It's probably pretty close, but yeah, I mean, it also, we're a little skewed because we have several manufacturers who are direct fulfillment only, so that really does skew our number quite a bit. But we're probably, I don't know, 60-40, something that range.
That's what I would have guessed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. How interesting. How interesting. Well, maybe I'll let's go into the last question for today, and I'm going to ask you both, so you guys can decide who answers first. The second person has to come up with a different answer if it's the same one. But what is your single piece of advice for a vendor that's evaluating direct fulfillment right now? Other than pick up the phone and talk to you guys, I'm sure that's a good piece of advice. But
that
beyond
that,
what's your second piece of advice for them? Who wants to go first?
Stephen, you go first.
I'll jump on that one. The single biggest piece of advice, if you've never done this, start slow, get all the stakeholders involved, ask a lot of questions, and just be ready. Success has many authors, failure has one. So just align all your internal resources.
Great tip there. Anything you want to add to that, Dan?
Amazon has a lot of resources available. Watch all the training modules. Go through the training on Vendor Central. There's a lot of great resources there. And when you first start it up, you're going to see suppressions and things like that. If you have a vendor manager or vendor success manager, work with them on the suppressions. They'll help you. They're not all real. Some things are, internal to Amazon where they're getting suppressed for something silly like being in a wrong category.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then increase your advertising budget. That's the biggest thing. Is you got all these new products now. You got more products to advertise, and you're gonna have to. Especially if you're launching new products, you're gonna want to increase your advertising budget.
Thank you. That's great. A great last piece of advice. Use the resources available there. All right. Before we wrap up, I want to go back to the question that Janine asked. I want to be respectful. Thank you, Janine, for asking it. Actually, it's a question about Merchant Spring. Does Merchant Spring report all vendor codes and are direct sales fulfilled included in order and ship revenue? I think my short answer is on the sellout, yes. So on retail analytics, you will get some of that data through. On the sell-in, no. Right? So you need a different level of effect. We were just talking about this just before at the start of the show. To get access to direct fulfillment and purchase order data, you do need an elevated level of access with Amazon. It's called a restricted data token in order to make the technical integration work. You need that in order to do the sell-in analysis on direct fulfillment. So we are working on that as we speak, but on the sell-in, the answer is not yet. On sellout, the answer is yes. I don't know if you guys want
And
to add
thank you,
anything to
Janine,
that.
for following up with what one of the questions we had.
It's a very, I mean, this gets me really excited because we haven't paid a lot of attention to direct fulfillment historically, but given the rise of this topic and it as a really good lever for vendors for many use cases, we are certainly here at Merchant Spring are very excited about trying to build that out further. All right, we are past the half an hour mark, so we're going to have to wrap up. Stephen and Dan, a huge thank you from me and on behalf of our audience for really sharing your operational and commercial wisdom around the Amazon direct fulfillment model. I always ask at the end of the shows if there's anyone that's kind of listening live or watching this live or watching our on-demand webinar after. And I want to chat with you a bit further. Maybe they're an in-stock vendor that is currently thinking about this topic. What is the best way to get in touch and start the conversation? And maybe that's one for you, Stephen.
Stephen Glass at MidwestRG.com. You find us on LinkedIn, find our website at MidwestRG.com. Or you can reach out there. That's the best way to get a hold of us.
Drop Stephen a message to continue the conversation. All right. Dan and Stephen, thank you so much. Till next time.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, everyone. That wraps up another episode of Marketplace Masters. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're an Amazon vendor looking to streamline your fulfillment, increase speed to customer, or protect your margins, insights today are a must listen. So make sure to subscribe to Marketplace Masters on your favorite platform and join us again next time as we bring the strategies, tools, and stories shaping the future of your Amazon vendor success. I'm Paul Sonneveld. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care.